Hey, Sister Squirrels. It's your favorite neurodivergent duo, Shy and Lex.
Welcome back to Black Girl, Brown Girl, Squirrel.
We want to take a moment to acknowledge there are a variety of people who could describe themselves as neurodivergent, and this can include a diverse list of conditions, disorders, etc.
And while our experiences may specifically relate to autism spectrum disorder, ASD, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, we hope that all our listeners can feel welcome and relate to the shared experience of being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world, because this is our safe space.
Hey, Lex.
Hey, Shy.
Well, we're back for another episode. How you doing today?
You know what? Today, I'm doing pretty good. I do not feel as wild as I felt last week. And I'm ready for us to get into this week and have something that's a little less unhinged.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm feeling a little less unhinged. I've been up working and staying up long hours, so I'm ready to crash out at this point. And it's so funny because this afternoon I was like, oh, I'm gonna take a nap. I set my timer. I was like, let me take a nap. I got a good hour and a half before I got to jump on with Lex. And I went to sleep, and don't you know, it was that good, knocked out. I woke up like, where am I? And all I'm doing is sitting on the couch.
Who am I? What day is it?
Yes. When you wake up going, who am I? You know you was good. Or I was gone. I was like,
Monday? You don't know what's going on.
Am I supposed to be going to work? Like, as long as I didn't get up getting dressed, I'm good. So I just I looked over. My mom was still watching the same K-drama that we were watching. I was like, okay, all right, I'm in a good place. So got up, got me some water, got ready. But anyway, that's me. So this time around in our episode, so I know we've talked quite a bit about our journeys. We talked about what our symptoms were in relation to the so-called neurodivergent symptoms. I would say the typical neurotypical, but no, that's not the case. We're not neurotypical, thankfully. But we embrace ourselves here and we love ourselves. Not that we don't love them, but this is about us. But before we get started, the one thing... I'm glad I could make you genuinely laugh. The one thing that I was going to say is, number one, realize that we are not medical professionals. We are just two women who are experiencing life through a neurodivergent lens, and we're just sharing our experiences, some of the research that we've done, and we do plan on having experts come on. We're actually lining some up now, which is really exciting. So we will have some episodes with that. And the other thing that we wanted to put out there, well, there's a couple of things, but I'll cover the ones that I feel were important to me too, that we're going today to be talking about different types of symptoms and other situations that could be impacting us. Some of this may involve things that are very close to home to you, like addiction, trauma, things like that. So we wanted to give a warning. So if you are dealing with that, we are going to encourage you to seek out the help of a licensed professional that can assist you. We will also have some of the resources that we know are reputable in the show notes that you will be able to use in order to find a licensed professional. And we're also going to be talking about societal and medical challenges that are faced in getting diagnosed, because we're talking about problems that lead to diagnosis, or challenges, I should say, that can lead to diagnosis, trying to get diagnosed. And we want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. If this is not the episode for you, feel free to skip this episode, but definitely take a look at the resources we have in the show notes. So if you require some additional assistance, you have great places to go to get that. And I know you had something you wanted to say that was important to you too, Lex.
Yeah, no, you said probably half of what I was feeling, but just to emphasize, like, yeah, we have the research here. We've got our own sort of anecdotal evidence, our own experiences. But again, we are not trained and licensed professionals. And so if you're listening to this information that we've been talking about over the last few weeks and you're like, this feels relatable to me, don't stop it with us, right? Seek out the guidance and the assistance from a licensed provider. There are plenty of resources we can also provide in the show notes about how you can go about finding a provider near you that can help you to get the clarity and the answers that you're looking for.
Yep. Exactly. Alrighty then. So I guess let's go ahead and get into this. This is a pretty weighty subject, but something that's really important. So let me back up. One reason why we have this episode is because it is already hard to get diagnosed as a woman. We know medically it's hard to get diagnosed for almost anything as a woman because it's almost always in our head. And neurodivergence is no different, right? If I hear that one more time, I'm going to scream. So we wanted to have that, and especially in our community, because there are so many challenges to that. And I remembered not long ago, someone asked me, because they were very genuinely curious and they wanted to know, why did we have a podcast around neurodivergence specifically for women of color? And I shared with her the medical history that has involved women of color, and it is a tragic one. It is a scary one. And unfortunately, it's one that still continues with a lot of bias, not just racial bias, cultural bias, gender bias, ageism, ableism, all these different things. I'm tired of isms. And I just am.
I feel that.
Every time I get started, I was like, I'm just tired. It's just because I exist, you know. And so once I explained that to them and said, and we needed a show, we needed a place where we can all go and gather so we can talk about these things in a way only we understand. And not having to continue to go through the lens of the rest of the world, not just neurotypical, but an unmelanated lens. We like our rose lenses, the lenses of color.
Yeah. To be able to talk about your experience in a way that doesn't require additional explanation.
Yes.
Because
additional
when you are neurodivergent, you already have to explain yourself. You already have to. If you have to explain what you're experiencing just as a person, as a neurodivergent woman, and then also as a woman, and then also as a Black or brown woman, there's just so much about your experience that's different.
Yep.
And it takes a little bit of mental effort. A little bit is being way too nice. It takes a lot of mental effort to be able to properly explain this.
Now, the other thing I did want to say too is this. Yes, we identify as Black women, 2 Black women from America. We realize that when we created this podcast, we created for all women of color. So our Latinas, our Hispanic women, our Asian women from everywhere, everyone in the diaspora, for all of those, which also includes those of us that are Black here in America. So no, I am not going to pretend that I know exactly what it's like to be Asian and neurodivergent and an immigrant, or, second gen or first gen in a country. I'm not going to pretend that at all. Same with our Latinas and our Hispanics from all of your variety of cultures and the diaspora that you all are part of, which also overlaps with us, which is a complicated history for all 3. We're not going there because this is not history, but I'm just saying the one thing that the reason why we did it for all of us and why we're somewhat speaking on all of our behalves is because there are a lot of overlapping things we experience as women of color. So our goal is to get people on the show that represent all aspects of our colorism, if you will, our colors, so to speak, our racial, ethical, I'm tired. Our racial and stop
ethnic?
Ethnic. Y'all, why my sister friend over here laughing at me? I guess because I'm always laughing at her. She's getting revenge.
She's tired, y'all. Give us some grace.
A lot of grace. It's been a week. But I want to make sure that we have representation for all of us culturally, racially, and ethnically. That's the word I was looking for. So we're working on that. Alexa and I are working on that to make sure we have that. But right now, we're just coming from the general perspective of women of color. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's just put out there something we all know and just going to address that elephant in the room and then move forward. The history around neurodivergence and research has always been geared towards young white males, period.
Mm-hmm.
And that set a standard for decades. And I want to say I meant to take a look to find out further. I believe it was in like the 1990s, maybe the 80s, but I think it was the 1990s-ish when they finally started looking at white girls for ADHD and neurodivergent.
Yes, I believe that is the case, because when I was doing some reading a couple years ago, I was like, so you telling me in the 90s they had just started diagnosing girls? In the 90s, I was a child. So they were still trying to figure out what they were doing for girls. And I was just out there living life like, well, come study me. But they weren't. So whatever the case may be. So yeah, it is still fairly new with looking at the criteria and how it applies to people who are not just young white boys. And that sort of racial bias that exists even just in medical research, things like that, help to make more challenges for those of us who are now living the life that we live.
Exactly. So as of right now, there is not a lot of research. And trust me, we're trying to find it, which is one reason why we started the show. There's not a lot of research related to women of color. What we are finding is that there's starting to become a little bit more research around white women and perimenopause and menopause and those links to late age diagnosis, as they like to call it, which means women that are getting diagnosed in their 40s and 50s. So just as a reminder, at the time of this recording, I'm 51, Lex is in her early 30s. So there is that age gap there between us, but we're both in the same situation of getting diagnosed later in life. I just happened to get diagnosed a lot later in life. And it turns out that there's a lot of women in my age group that we're actually called the missed generation, because many of us grew up neurodivergent without even knowing it. I do know of younger women, and even more so now, younger girls, but I do know of younger women who were diagnosed as children, even as teens, but mainly because, and here's the caveat, the primary reason was because they were hyperactive.
Yeah, that'll do it. You're causing a disturbance to other people. So
exactly. Because when I was thinking back, like, okay, who did I know? Like, even when I was a young adult, like in my early 20s, I know children that were diagnosed. Like, there was one little girl, she was diagnosed, I want to say, with ADD. She had no fear. She was literally doing things like jumping off roofs. She was a little bit of a tomboy, a lot of fun to hang out with. She was a cool little girl, but she was doing dangerous things because she had no real perception of danger. She was extremely impulsive and she was hyperactive. So that's how she got diagnosed. Like, you're not doing the things that little girls would normally do, which is sitting nice and quiet and playing with their Barbies and not making a lot of noise and dreaming about being a princess. And she was like, no, but I can go on a roof and I could throw a mud pie from really, really high up. And then I'm going to run and jump from one roof to the other. And then I'm going to get, and I was like, and so, yeah, that was actually the first little girl that I knew of diagnosed with ADD. It was probably the first time I heard about it. I honestly think my brother as a kid may have had some ADD in there because he was always having to move while he was studying and learning and in school and stuff, and we get in trouble an awful lot. And I really think that's what it was. He's not quite the same now. He's kind of mellowed out, but to put a label on it, she was the first little girl. So yeah, we're still fighting for that. We're still fighting to literally for people not to say it's all in our head.
Yeah. I thought about a friend of ours who she was very sure that her daughter was on the autism spectrum. She was just looking at her child and then looking at research and being like, y'all, I think my child has autism. She went to start doing the process for testing and assessment, and they're like, no, I don't think so. Like, I don't even think that we're going to go forward with like trying to do the assessment. She was like, no, you finna assess her. And lo and behold, assessment made it very clear. Now, when she told me this, it was funny because I was looking like, before she told me, I was looking at her child like,
Yep.
this kid feels familiar. This kid
Mm-hmm.
feels very familiar in a lot of different ways. So it wasn't surprising to me, but it was, again, a little disappointing to hear about
Yeah.
the struggle she
Yeah.
went through to get that done, considering how obvious it was
Yes.
to us that this was the case.
Yeah, I agree, because one of the things that I noticed, so when I was in my mid 20s, I have a friend whose son is autistic. Well, see, being in college and being a deaf studies minor, we were looking at not only that community, but you're looking at adjacent communities, right? So one of the adjacent communities in the, when you're talking about people that are in the so-called accessible community, you're looking at other situations, health situations, symptoms, things like that. And so I picked up right away. I was like, I didn't have a name for it or a word for it, but I was like, I literally said to my mom, I don't think something is right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's ableist talk, but that was the only way I could describe it, because I was like, he comes over, he would sit down, he would interact some, and then he would be off in his own world. And so me being an only child, I was used to being off in my own world. So I took it as, okay, well, he's just sitting there and he's like, these are a bunch of adults and I'm gonna leave him alone. But there were, what I now know, there were signs where he was stimming, he was doing different things. I didn't know what that was called then, but I saw different things. And so finally, at some point in time, while I'm watching this child grow up, it probably within about a year or two of meeting him and meeting my friend and his son, I finally had the word. And I said, I think he's autistic and I think he needs to be tested. Now, it took a minute for the parents to come to that conclusion for themselves, as it is with anything involving your child. You don't want to think that there was something that your child has that you don't understand or cannot help them through, or whatever the case may be. And especially when it involves some sort of a medical situation. But they did finally get him diagnosed. And once he started working with the right licensed professionals and all of that, he did very well in school. He's a working adult now. He works in a bakery. He loves working in his bakery. And when I go home back to California and visit, because he's now in his 30s, I want to say. And so when I go home to visit, and if he happens to be there, he actually remembers us, which is something that I did not realize, that with people that are on the spectrum that go into their own world, so to speak, that they really are aware of the other people around them. So he does remember us. He may not remember our names, but he remembers our faces, because we babysat him and all that kind of stuff and took care of him. And he talks about his job very proudly and everything. He still needs some assistance. So he lives in a group home. So he needs some assistance, but he's relatively independent, which is wonderful. So we're saying all that to say we're growing up with and are exposed in a lot of ways to those that are in the neurodivergent community in ways that we may not have realized. And it's just now that they're really starting to understand that we're a spectrum, just like ASD is a spectrum, and that kind of a thing. And so diagnosis is the same thing. So why don't we talk about, I know I've talked for a minute, I'm sorry, but why don't we talk about let's start with first some of the common conditions and things that might make it challenging to get diagnosed properly with neurodivergence.
Yeah, so one thing that kept coming up, and I can kind of relate to this in a way. So, of course, neurodivergence can present different ways in different people. So can so many other conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have more than one condition at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's overlap between, say, ADHD, autism, OCD, PTSD, overlap between these conditions and also something else, that can simply be just like a confusing factor for a provider, even if they are actually trying to assist you in the best way that they can.
Yes.
You also have an issue of you have to prioritize what's going on. So, for example, when I talk about how me coming to this realization fully happened in therapy, and I first went to therapy for depression. I am in an intense depressive episode. So when I'm having my beginning sessions, Dr. A is not about to say, let's talk about the fact you might be autistic. She's trying to help me to remember why I want to keep going, right?
Yes. Yes.
I came in there saying that I wanted help with identifying my emotions and knowing what to do with them. She's trying to help me do that. Now, later on down the line, she came to realize part of why I'm having so much trouble with identifying my emotions and processing them is because of the autism. But she had to help me get through some other things, top layers, before we can get to really the foundation of the challenge that's happening to me. Because ultimately, you can go your whole life without being diagnosed with autism. You probably will struggle a bit, but you can do it. But if you go your whole life not addressing some of the issues with major depression, you might not make it your whole life.
Yep.
Because, enough said.
Yeah.
So when you have situations like this, it can really complicate the issue with trying to get a proper diagnosis because there's just too many factors that they're having to consider at one time. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things too that we should keep in mind about getting diagnosed. One reason why so many of us got diagnosed later in life is because as we get older as women, our hormones change. The balance of the hormones can change. All of these things come into effect. So like with me, I literally thought I was going crazy and I also thought I was manic. And what I mean by going crazy is I had already had depression since childhood as part of my trauma. I already had PTSD. Then I got to a point where I was like super excited and doing all these great things and then crashing down and being so sad and being so depressed and not wanting to do anything in life. A variety of different things. And it was scary because I felt like I had no control over my emotions. And I remember one time, you and I had jokingly talked about it, but I was like, how I was filled with so much rage behind things. Like something wouldn't just make me mad. It would send me way out to Pluto. Like I would just be so angry to the point that like I rage wrote something in a diary and said, let me put a password on it. And to this day, I cannot remember the password, which is probably a good thing. So no longer did that. And how medication helped me and balanced me out. So when our hormones are out of balance for whatever reasons, whether we have PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, if we have cysts and polyps, whatever that is, whatever is impacting the endocrine system, whatever is it, all of that comes into effect. I had thyroid issues. I had endometriosis. I had fibroids. I had cysts, ovarian cysts. Yeah. So as you're getting older and your hormones are changing, all of that throws off. So that's the other reason why sometimes like, oh, it's just all in your head. And I'm like, no, I'm literally feeling physical effects from stuff. And I don't know what to do with this. So one of the things too that I wanted to talk about, since I talked about, thyroid issues and things, keep in mind that autoimmune illnesses, they are just now discovering in women are linked to neurodivergence. So there's not a ton of studies out there yet, at least that I could find, but there are some, and I've talked it over like my rheumatologist, and I've talked this over with Dr. A as well. Fibromyalgia, which I have, chronic fatigue syndrome, rheumatoid arthritis, which I also have, lupus, multiple sclerosis, all of these and more that I can't even think of all the names for these, but they're all linked in the whole autoimmune situation. So they have found that those of us that have autoimmune illnesses more than likely also have some form of neurodivergence, and they're working to find out what the connection is. And if you know anything about autoimmune illnesses, and I'm going to assume that you do, but some of you may not, when you get one, you are likely to kick off the others. So what I went to my rheumatologist for, which was inflammation, which was likely rheumatoid arthritis, I later found out was not only rheumatoid arthritis, it was also fibromyalgia. Let me tell you, I have been anemic. They thought at one point I had some form of blood cancer. I've had a number of things where I've had to do vials of blood. When they went to test my body for autoimmune illnesses, I counted They ran my test for everything possible. I had 11 vials of blood, some bigger than others. I didn't know if
so
I
much
had
blood.
anything.
That's so much.
It was a lot. And I was like, do I have anything left?
No.
Like it was it was almost frightening to think that it's so much, but they ran every single test. I didn't have lupus markers, and there's multiple forms of lupus and all that stuff. So what we're saying is those conditions can throw off your hormones as well. And if you're going in and saying, hey, I'm feeling this way, that way, and the other, they're like, oh, well, it could be this, 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 and that, when in actuality ends up being your neurodivergent.
I have a question for you about that too.
Yes.
Because I also was so surprised when I saw the link between fibromyalgia. Is it specifically ADHD it's linked with, or are they finding a variety of different conditions that it's linked with?
I think initially it started off as it's linked to ADHD. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure what the exact link is. My best educated assumption is when you're talking about fibro, it's about, you have sensitivities to being touched. So there's that sensory kind of disorder, if you will. And this is the funny thing. I don't know how long I've had fibro, but I did have certain areas of my body that I could, like, my mom used to like play poking at me and stuff. She would just like poke on my arm.
And she do that to me.
Yes, she does. And so she would poke, and there were days it wouldn't hurt at all. And there were days that I would just recoil. And I'm like, oh my God, that hurts so bad. And she thought I was overacting. But I really felt this pain. And then I'm trying to figure out, why am I feeling this pain? And then I would end up with bruises on my body in different places because I bumped into something, or all it was a simple tap on something. And then my body's going haywire. So I think that the sensory aspect of fibro might be linked to the sensory aspects of neurodivergence. I used to think that I don't want to be touched was connected to trauma. I still think it is, but now it makes sense that it's also connected to my neurodivergence. I have an aversion to unwelcomed touch.
And I think that gets back to the crux of the issue, is that it could be multiple reasons why you are exhibiting these symptoms. Because I have some similar things because of trauma, certain kinds of ways, like don't touch me. And the more stressed out, the more I do not want you to touch me. But I know for a fact I've got like 2 or 3 different reasons. Yeah. Like, because people's first instinct is, oh my gosh, let me hug you to make you feel better. And I'm like, no, get away from me. Now I'm bucking up at them like, go on somewhere, because they're like, that's not actually what I need. What I need is for you to go sit down over there and just listen to me talk. Don't touch me unless you want, problems. So, but there's multiple reasons why that's happening. Yes. Sometimes it is a trauma response, and sometimes I'm just like, no, I can't take people touching me. I don't want that right now. It's just overwhelming for that to be happening.
Exactly.
So again, something that can make it difficult. And something else I was thinking about when you were talking about some of the challenges you were having with fibro, rheumatoid, and all of that, I thought about in my case, so I do have PCOS. I've been struggling with fibroids. I'm gearing up for surgery for it. Thank God, because I want them out. But I'm sick of these things. But
you're going to feel so much better.
Yes. Because of them, I was also having some bouts of anemia. Like, I was always borderline, like, not enough to be like, go to the hospital, but nothing. My doctor was like, please take an iron pill, please.
Yes.
And I was like, well, which one do you recommend? This? She was like, I don't care. Just go buy one and take it, please.
Yep.
So I've been having to deal with different kinds of treatments and interventions to help with that. Yes. To cope with some of the other things. The PCOS threw my weight way out of whack. So I've been fighting that for the last couple of years. So it made me exhausted.
Yes.
So being exhausted does 2 things. Number one, it makes it, if you're exhausted from certain health problems you're having, you don't have the energy to go ask somebody to assess you for a neurodivergent condition. You might not also have enough money to do so. Because let's be honest, getting an assessment is not free. At least not in America. I know we
Yes.
got some listeners in some other places in the world. How y'all doing?
Hey, y'all.
I know one of y'all in the UK. Y'all medical system is different than ours.
Right?
So, but over here, it's not free, right? So if you have a limited amount of money available to you, and you like, I am budgeting to spend my money on co-pays for doctor's visits, co-pays for medications, out of pocket for treatments and medications, the last thing you got in your mind is trying to find someone to assess you for this. Then you got to find out the one that actually specializes in assessing adults for a neurodivergent condition. There's so many aspects to that.
Yes.
So for one thing, the exhaustion will make it so you simply do not feel like it. The other thing is being exhausted from these conditions can hide the fact that you might be exhausted from masking or just sensory overstimulation. Because as I've been treated for some of the other conditions I'm working with, which are also hormonal, so all the stuff that goes into that, I was also exhausted from depression. Medication for that has been very helpful as well. I didn't realize how tired I get from just being an autistic person being outside. I didn't realize. And it wasn't until like fairly recently I've been paying more attention to it, because I'm like, I'm doing pretty good. This medicine's helped with this. Doing this has helped me to be able to do this more. I'm actually able to be more active now, and being active is very helpful for me having good energy levels. So why am I so tired? And I'm like, I am tired for a different reason.
Yes.
I'm tired because I had to go be in an office building for a week, or I had to do a lot of talking to other people for all these reasons this week, and I don't got it no more.
Exactly. You know, it's so funny because people that meet me, and even some of my friends, honestly, think that I am such an extrovert, and I am not. It took me years to realize I am truly an introvert. Even growing up, my mom was like, why don't you go somewhere? Go hang out with some friends. And I was like, no, I'm cool at home. I've always been a homebody, and I just thought it was because that was my safe space. My room was my safe space. And I could read, I could relax, I could listen to my music, I could dance, I could be silly, I could do whatever I wanted to do by myself. You know, I was an only child. I was used to that. And it wasn't until recently that I realized that I would pick and choose when I wanted to people. And it was because of the level of stimulation that I would have. It never dawned on me that I would always get tired of being around people. Like, so I, by profession, am a coach and a trainer. So I am used to talking with people one-on-one. I am used to going out. I literally train hundreds of people at one time. Like in a given day with one of my clients, I may train 1,000+ people in a course of a day. And I love it. But when I'm done, I am so exhausted. And I realized once I was diagnosed that I was like, you know what? Because you are a natural introvert. I guess what I'm called is what, an ambivert, somebody, an introvert that can go extroverted. So I can go extroverted. I am on when I am training. And honestly, I'm good at what I do. I call it my theatrics. I wrote a poem when I was like 14 called The Mask, not realizing that's what I was living. It's like I'm living behind a mask. But when I'm done, I have to go back to my hotel room. If I happen to be training on a ship when I work for one of the cruise lines or whatever, I immediately make a beeline to my room. Maybe I'll get a drink at the bar, but I make a beeline to my room because I need the quiet. I need the sound of the ocean. I need to, as you told Jazzy the other day, you know, it's a sensory reset.
Yep.
And then when we, you know, going back to what you're saying about the different types of things that we deal with. So we've talked about the mood disorders. Many of us find out we're neurodivergent because we were depressed. We had high anxiety. We had all these things that we felt like we had to go to therapy to get help with. And yes, there's underlying trauma. I'm sure trauma might be a part of it some way, somehow. And as they're working through it and they start peeling back all these layers and they're like, okay, well, here's part of the reason. So you're really tired because you've been autistic and been masking for all your life and trying to fit in and trying to figure out things. And yeah. And then you're tired over here because you are impulsive and it causes you to run and go do all these things and overly commit and exhaust yourself. And you need to pull back. And because you overcommitted and because you're doing this, now you are overstimulated. You're procrastinating on the things that you need to get done because you've overwhelmed yourself. You've run out of time because what you thought was going to take 5 minutes is taking you 2 hours because you're time blind on top of being overwhelmed. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot. So just to talk about some of the co-occurring conditions that can take place, particularly in women and in girls, it will show up as what they are calling disordered eating, whether you're overeating or undereating. Body dysmorphia. It's one thing for us to look at ourselves and say, oh, I should lose a little weight. Body dysmorphia is a whole other thing, a whole other beast. We're talking addictions. Whether you're talking food, whether you're talking alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever it is, you might be addicted to your phones. That's a real thing nowadays. Social media, addictions. It shows up in different ways because it's all about getting some of those dopamine hits, right? Mm-hmm. Having difficulties with our sleep. So that can be insomnia, or it can go the other way. You just want to sleep all the time. And they probably should have known I was neurodivergent because I was literally born sleeping. I have not changed. My mom said when I came out, I had fingers and mouth. I was asleep. And she was nervous because I was not making a sound. And she was asking the doctors what's wrong. And they could see I was breathing, but I wasn't like crying and all that. So they gave me pap on my butt. She said, you literally took your fingers out your mouth and went, oh, and went right back to sleep and sucking your fingers. And she said, you've been a sleeping baby ever since. She said, I never had a problem with you. If you wanted to take a nap, I let you take a nap. She was like, you always slept. And even I know, crazy, right? Because I am a sleeper. I remember I never liked clubs, but when my friends would go to a club, I could go to the club, lay next to the speaker, be out. I am a sleeper. And it's crazy because, you know, when we talk about hormones and stuff, when I would get my cycle, I could sleep for days. And the only reason why I would get up is because you got to go do the things you got to do to take care of yourself when you're having that. Other than that, I would be like hardcore knocked out, like I hadn't slept in days. Depression, I want to sleep. Some people eat, some people do other things. I just want to sleep. So it is wild to me to think about how some of these things are tied into neurodivergence. Mood disorders, like we talked about, depression, anxiety,
bipolar disorder,
bipolar. Bipolar is one that definitely runs in connection. And then also too, they talk about tic disorders. So things like Tourette syndrome. And then there's others, like you mentioned, obsessive compulsive disorder, social anxieties. I found my social anxiety got way worse once we hit COVID. I didn't realize I even had social anxiety. Yeah. And then when COVID hit,
it's like I had to start all over again with learning how to person. I was like, this is insane. I went to I think a restaurant, tried to buy something, and just the process of me trying to pay for my food. I was like, ooh, how did I forget how to have this interaction? But then if I think about it, everything I do when I interact with other people is based off of patterns and experiences that I kept having. So I just kind of go back to that same script, right? Well, I hadn't done the script in a while, so I forgot my lines. I forgot what I was supposed to be doing. I was like, yeah, my car. No, that's right. We just tap everything now. Okay. Thanks. Like it was a struggle. Me trying to just person again, and my reaction was, I got to go outside some more because I don't want to feel like this. I felt like I had regressed socially in a lot of different ways because we simply weren't having the interactions.
Wow. That's powerful. Especially when you said you felt like you regressed because you had made such progress, you know, and listening to your story and just knowing you had made such progress to get sociable. Cause I can remember you coming to the house when I would have gatherings and stuff like that. And we have quite a few friends that have social anxiety. So I know not to invite them to, big gatherings and things like that. And to be around people that they know and are relatively comfortable with. So they're not thrown into, oh God, I've got to meet new people kind of thing. But to regress, that is hard in a lot of ways. And for me, I felt like I was becoming an agoraphobe, like I was developing a fear of people, which I had never really had before. But I developed, and part of that was because I was also considered immunocompromised. I still can't get the COVID shots. So I was really at high risk. And my doctor was like, one of them was like, if you do get this, you're probably going to end up in the hospital. And with all the horror stories we saw on TV, and I'm really sorry to any of our listeners that may have had to endure that themselves or with their family, that was terrifying for me. And I have a husband that's a school teacher. It was terrifying. So being around people exasperated my anxiety, my depression, and I feel gave me more mental health challenges than I was prepared to deal with at the time, which thankfully, like I said, getting into therapy also helps. So we talked about like the co-occurring conditions, but they're also just to tap into some of the conditions that are associated with neurodivergence, which also helps us to see why it can be challenging. We know about autism spectrum disorder, ADHD. You have dyscalculia, which is the challenges with math. We already know my story about that. Dysgraphia, which is difficulty in writing. Dyslexia, difficulty with reading, reversing letters and numbers and things like that. Dyspraxia, which is difficulty with coordination. And oh my word, when my ND is ending, my mom was like, what did you drop now? And I'm like, it's just, and it used to be worse when I would have my cycle. I cannot I think back on things now and I'm like, oh, my ND was showing up bad.
Okay, 2 things to this. First of all, you are not the only person. You are not the only woman I know who says when she's on her cycle, she get the dropsies real bad. She just drops everything. She bumps into stuff. I had one friend who it got to the point when she would start dropping stuff and bumping into things, her husband would just be like, is it that time? And she's like, yeah. Because he figured out like this, you keep having this happen to you when you're on your cycle. Wild thing to me. Second thing about this is I remember when doing research about autism and sort of some of the symptoms that happen in childhood a lot, and things like this were listed: the dyscalculia, dysgraphia, dyslexia, dyspraxia. And when I saw dyspraxia, I said, what is that? And I looked it up. I said, ooh, I spent my whole childhood on the ground. I was always falling. Couldn't get it together. It was like I couldn't figure out where my body was situated in space. I still kind of struggle with this. I think I actually overcorrected. I look before I do almost anything because I got tired of bumping into stuff. And again, it just feels embarrassing to have that kind of thing happen to you. So by the time I got to my late teens, I was like, no, I'm going to look and see what's going on before I go over there. Look before you step. Wow. Put this stuff over there so you won't knock into it. Just don't.
Let me ask you something. So did that impact other things that most people do socially, like dancing?
Oh man, I don't dance. I do not dance. Like I might do a little 2-step. I mean, you see me at a concert. I have a good time, but I'm not out there busting out steps. Like it's not going down. It's not doing. And I don't even have an interest in doing so. But like dancing, like even dances that seem simple, to me, I have to think too hard to do it.
Got it.
You're asking me to learn something by looking at it, which is not how I learn. And then imitate it with my body, which I don't do very well. So I hope that answers your question. I do not dance.
Yeah, because that was my polite way of asking, why don't you dance? So,
but that's fun funny
for me. But see, that's funny because I grew up dancing and I love to dance. And I have great coordination when it comes to that. But when it comes to other things, like if I'm cooking sometimes, I am dropping the spoons or my cooking utensils. I am dropping a cup. It's And it's frustrating. I know you guys can hear the exasperation in my voice because I'm literally thinking about these. It's so frustrating. So the point is that there could be a variety of things that are taking place. And because of that, we're being told, oh, well, let's look at this and let's look at that, when it's it could be a combination of things. Not saying that it can't be some sort of medical situation, but it could also be that, you know what, your brain is just operating differently. You thought that the edge of the counter was closer than what it is. That doesn't necessarily mean visually you're having issues. It's your coordination is off. Your hand-eye coordination could be a little bit off. Sometimes I stumble when I walk, like literally, why am I tripping over air? I don't understand this concept. And it would happen a lot. And I would twist my ankles and do these different types of things. And now I know that's part of, the coordination aspect. And I think too, probably some of the sensory aspect. And if you have inner ear issues, like I'm getting tested now for some inner ear issues, that throws things off as well. So that all makes it challenging. There are other things too, that I want to throw out there just for us to think about that oftentimes get associated with other things. So if we have, for instance, sometimes if there's challenges picking up social cues and interacting socially, that may or may not also be because of depression or anxiety. I used to think my inability to make eye contact with people or maintain eye contact with people, even on screen, was an eye issue problem. I have stigmatisms. I have this, that. No, that's part of my neurodivergence. When I would have sensitivities to smells, I would have phases, and especially when I used to have my cycle, but I could smell anything and everything. And I will not tell you how gross that is, that you can smell anything and everything.
I don't recommend it. It's not great.
No.
I used to always say I have a strong sense of smell, and then I figured out, oh no, it's your sensory sensitivity.
Yes,
and I can smell everything, and some of y'all stink. I would rather not be smelling y'all.
I remember like even just instances in high school where you were sitting in your row and your desk, and I could literally smell other people.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it at that. And then there were times when I was dealing with my autoimmune illnesses and my senses were on overload, where like I could smell, like if the air conditioning came on, I can smell all the chemicals in the air conditioning. I could smell somebody's perfume or cologne from miles away. I would sit down to go eat. I remember very clearly one day I went to sit down and eat, and I was eating I love a good Reuben sandwich, and I was eating a Reuben sandwich at one of my favorite restaurants. After like 3 bites, I all of a sudden had a food aversion. I was like, I need you to get this away from me. So my husband like slid it to like the end of the table. I was like, no. I need to take it off the table and away from me because I can smell it. It is making me sick. And I felt like, even though I've never been pregnant, I've been around a lot of pregnant women, when they get that, they went from having a craving and now all of a sudden it's making them sick, or it's something that they used to like is making them sick. Like I was like, I need you to move it now because I am about to blow. So they would move it from the table and all of a sudden I'd be absolutely fine. Sensory sensitivities are wild. Sometimes you may have migraines, sensitive to light, sensitive to sound. Well, you're thinking that, oh, it's just because I have a migraine. Well, it could be neurodivergence too. That's what makes this so complicated. Some of us are chronically late. Black folks, in the Caribbean, man, you know what we call it.
I hope somebody listening to this show is from the Caribbean so they can tell you not to do that accent no more. We're going to lose whatever Caribbean audience we might ever pick up. We're not, lose it today.
I have traveled enough to the Caribbean, and most of them don't mind the accent. Even though it's more West Indies than Jamaican. But we all know, and you know what? I don't care. We're women of color. I think the only culture that probably does not have this problem might be Asians, but we call it CP time, colored people time, black folk time, whatever the case you want to call it. We late. Well, when you're neurodivergent, you're not just late, you late. Like,
I would like to throw in there that I am chronically on time.
She is. She really is. Like, if you tell her log in at 5:30, she is logging in at 5:29:59, so that by the time everything connects, it is 5:30. Whereas I look at it and I go 5:30, click, 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 and by the time I get in, it's 5:35. But I'm here.
I'm chronically on time. I get to things earlier than I intend to, and I just be in the parking lot just waiting. I joke that I'm so chronically on time that I was born on the exact day that the doctor said I was going to be born the first time. My due date
really
tried to change, and I said, no. Y'all said this is the day I'm coming.
Rule follower. I was 2 weeks. Now, this shows you how
I was born at like 5:30 in the morning. I was born so early in the morning.
But you was like, you told me to be here. I'm here, and I showed up early. See, me, my neurodivergence showed up in being 2 weeks late. And then I took 3 days to get here. My mom was like, not only did you have the nerve to be late, I went into labor on a Friday. You didn't come till Monday nights. And I was like, I was getting my hair and nails done. What could I say? Again, it shows up at birth. No, I'm just kidding. But there's a lot of different things. So yes, the lateness, prioritizing, task management, multitasking, which I really don't recommend to anybody. We're really not multitasking. You're just shifting your attention back and forth in multiple ways. And they've proven that our brains in general do not function well and constantly doing that all at one time. Some of us do repetitive behaviors. We have very intense focuses. I did not realize that when I got so intensely involved in something that it was part of neurodivergence. Like when I finally decided to go down, we'll have a whole episode on this, but go down the rabbit hole of learning about K-pop, I spent days going down a rabbit hole and like not sleeping and all this kind of stuff. Didn't know that was part of my neurodivergence. I just thought, oh, I'm excited. I'm learning something new. And I'm finding good music and da-da-da-da-da. And then I'm going back to Lex and our other friends. And I was like, hey, I found this group and that group and this. And they're like, how did you find these? Like, these aren't people we told you to listen to. We told you to go listen to X, Y, and Z. How did you get all the way back to A, B, and C? Because I went down the rabbit hole on YouTube one night and it was really, really good. And they're like, no. I'm sure they were diagnosing me then.
And so as this relates to a barrier in diagnosis, friend, if you think that these things are just a regular part of life, you don't even probably think to go get diagnosed with anything.
No.
It simply doesn't cross your mind.
No.
You're like, yeah, we all do that. It's like, everybody don't do that, friend.
No.
Everybody does not do that.
No, they don't. They don't. Repetitive behaviors is one thing. Emotional regulation. This is especially hard for women. If you have, as the older generations call, female issues, if you have PCOS, if you have PMS, PMD, all of these type of things, those are emotional. They will throw your emotions into overdrive. That's another reason why it's hard to diagnose neurodivergence, because it also affects our emotional regulation, which is why people don't find out about it till they start hitting perimenopause and menopause, when your hormones are so thrown out of whack, which is one reason why they end up on hormone replacement therapy to kind of make you have some semblance of normalcy. There's communication differences. Sometimes there's the inability to speak clearly, meaning mixing up your words, your thoughts, your everything. Sometimes there's just nonverbal communication. You just don't want to speak, or you may not be able to speak and say what you want to say that's in your head. Different ways of learning. So some of us are not able to do well with reading, writing, or math, but also to how we learn. Some of us end up being more visual. Some of us have to have, we're auditory. Some of us are a combination. I need to see, do, hear. So yeah, it's a lot. But let's talk a little bit. Those are some from the medical perspective. So we've done a lot of talking about a lot of stuff that coexists. So if you think that any of this relates to you, we've got some questions that you can ask yourself to let you know if this is something that may or may not be neurodivergent that you may want to see a licensed professional about.
Yeah. So some of these things that might want to look out for, are you having persistent difficulties? So are there aspects of your daily life that consistently feel challenging or overwhelming? And that consistency part is the point, because again, we might have mentioned this in a previous episode. Sometimes you might be having some of these symptoms happening in your life just because you're having a tough moment. I mentioned that sometimes I only can connect with some of the challenges of ADHD if I'm in a depressive episode, right? So are you having something like that go on, or is it all the time, no matter what, the difficulties persist? Another thing to consider, differences from peers. Do you often feel that you process information, interact socially, or react to sensory input differently than others your age? And again, I think it's interesting that it's talking about age because you get to different points developmentally, right? Over time.
Right.
So the way that 5-year-olds are reacting to a situation, it's going to be different from 12-year-olds, different from 19-year-olds, right? The key is, for your peer group, are you noticing that what you've got going on is a little different from what's happening around you? I know that's how I felt, and that's how I ended up here on this podcast.
Well, what's funny? I feel like I probably act a little bit more immature than people my age sometimes, because I look around and I'm like, y'all act so old.
People, neurodivergent women often get accused of being immature and childlike, and I just think they just live in life. But that's
I'm living my best life. So yes, there we go.
Some other things to think about. Are you having sensory sensitivities? So do certain sounds, lights, textures, smells significantly impact your comfort or ability to function? Are they so much causing a disturbance or interruption to you that you can't even go about whatever daily tasks you normally would be doing? Something that you might feel should be simple. Is it totally hindering you from doing this? Executive function struggles. So do you frequently struggle with organization, time management, planning, or initiating tasks?
Why are you looking at me? I plan very well. Thank you very much.
Yes, you do plan. You've planned vacations and etc. that I've been on. I had no idea what was happening behind the scenes, sis. Had no clue.
You was like, just tell me when to bring the bag and I'm going to show up.
Yeah. I had no idea of the stuff that was happening. I'm learning so many things. I didn't know you had 18 tabs open, friend. I didn't know.
That girl, that's just a slow day. 18?
Yep. And finally, with your emotional experience, are you experiencing heightened anxiety, difficulty regulating emotions, or intense emotional responses? And again, this is talking about the intensity in relation to the situation, right?
Yes.
So a lot of times anxiety is described as having a reaction to something that is not really proportionate to the situation at hand. Are you experiencing that all the time? If you're having this or some of the other things that were mentioned, you might want to consider speaking to a professional to look into assessment, or maybe to get some more information about how you can go about doing so.
Most definitely. And even though there are a lot of self-assessments out there, and we know that there's a lot out there that are reputable to our community or for our community, we're encouraging that you go and speak to someone that is licensed and can assist you in getting further evaluated, because oftentimes there's multiple things that are also existing along with the neurodivergence. Some might have PTSD. Well, you've got to work through some of the emotional and mental health challenges that come from the traumas and all these other things. Whether or not you even have trauma, it might not even be about that. You might have anxiety from your job. They're doing layoffs, you're picking up more work, all those types of things. So how do you manage the anxiety and the stress of that? And then eventually you might find out, oh, underlying might be neurodivergence, or it may not be. We're not saying that because you have these things that this all equates to, but we're saying this, it's a spectrum that we're dealing with. And I want us to be comfortable in hearing that word, saying that word, and using that word in our community, because neurodivergence is a spectrum. It's not just associated with one form of neurodivergence. So just like ADHD has its 3 forms, you have ASD, which technically now has 3 levels. There's levels to this, but there's varying degrees within those levels. So you may not have all of these things, but one of these on a regular basis, all day, every day, or at least every other day, is probably an indicator that you're on the spectrum. And the one thing that I want to also, the other reason why I like to encourage people to talk to a licensed professional is because you will have people around you that will say things like, girl, I forget all the time. Oh, I do that all the time. I'm always dropping stuff. And it's not that it's not true, but you know when it's above and beyond what might be considered normal for you. And depending on what it is you're dealing with, and you're looking around at people around you, you know when it's above and beyond what is typical of the people that are around you. If everybody else can whip out their credit card and sit and pay their bills and not have a problem, and you're the one sitting there thinking about, okay, now once I take this out, what do I do? Do I just put it down on that's different from being the first time at a restaurant and you realize you could pay at the table versus going up and paying at the hostess desk or something. You know what I'm saying? It's literally, I have to think through the steps of what I have to do. If you're thinking through the steps every morning, okay, I have to get up out of bed. What do I do when I get up out of bed? Okay, I need to put my feet on the floor. I need to get up. I need to go walk into the bathroom. Whatever the case may be, there's possibly neurodivergence there. And for those of us that deal with autoimmune illnesses that are spoonies, we know that we go through this. We're constantly thinking about how much energy do I have to do X, Y, and Z. This is substantially more than just thinking through how much energy do I have. It's not only how much energy do I have, it's also, let me think about all the people that I have to be around today. Do I have to fake my way through my day? And not fake your way as in you're trying to pretend like you're not as achy or hurting as much. Literally, do I have to fake smile my way through the whole day because I'm not going to understand anything that's going on? Or I don't find stuff funny that everybody else is finding funny because it's doesn't make sense to me.
I feel called out. I feel fully called out.
I'm thinking about all these different examples of us, like, you know, in previous episodes, we all talked about how we were checkbook, this and that. And I'm thinking, you know, it's one thing to not be organized at home, but am I disorganized at my office? Am I disorganized in my car? And then does that overwhelm you to the point that you're like, now I don't want to do this because I'm overwhelmed and it's causing me emotional distress? That's me. It is causing me emotional distress. And I do want to do something about it. I don't feel like doing anything about it because it's exhausting me. And don't tell me to do something about it, because then I'm really not going to want to do anything about it, even though I really do want to do something about it.
Yep. That sounds about right. Yep.
So we're saying that if any of these things occur on a regular basis, we want to encourage you to talk to a licensed professional. Again, there will be some resources in the show notes for you, and we would love to hear from you. So let us know your stories or questions you have that you want us to do a little bit more research on. Maybe you're not ready to speak to someone yet, but you have some questions that maybe we can dive into and kind of give you a little guidance and get some professional thoughts on that we can share back with you. So you can always email us, hit us up on social media. Everything is in the show notes on our pages. So with that being said, we didn't get into the societal aspects. That'll be the next episode. Whew. Mm-hmm. I might need a drink for that one.
We keep thinking we finna have these little simple episodes, and we keep giving y'all 2-parters. So, whoops.
But that shows you how deep it is. I promise one day we will have an episode that's probably like 20 minutes. I just don't know when that's going to be yet.
Me neither. Yeah, we'll let y'all know when it happens.
That was probably the first episode.
Yep, that's been the only one.
Yeah, but thanks for hanging in there with us and listening to us and what we have to say. So I see you in the next one, Lex.
Bye.
We want to thank you, our fellow sister squirrels, for joining us today. If you found this episode helpful, please take a moment and share your thoughts with us and your fellow squirrels by taking a screenshot of the episode, then tagging BGBG Squirrel in your IG stories.